Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I'd like to share a feature I added into my project I built for my family here, and that is a completely dynamic and expandable list that connects to your data validation. So the way this works is we have somewhat of a mini database here, just a general list, and you have data validation that connects to it in as many cells as you want that reflects that list. And on the list itself, you can see at the bottom, we have green to represent entering new data here. And as soon as we enter new data, it automatically expands down. And then once you add data in here, it shows that on our data validation list. So as soon as you remove data, it will likewise bring the green box to enter new data back up. So there's a lot of different ways you can apply this to your workbook for your needs, as well as tweaks and quirks, such as how to handle the duplicates. So I'll go ahead and create a blank workbook and get into that right now. Over here on our blank workbook, the first thing we're going to need is our list, whatever that may be for you. So for this video, I'm just going to call it expanding list, right? And then I'll just go ahead and make this look a little better, give it some bordering and formatting. However y'all do yours is up to you. And then after that, of course, we need some data. So this would be all your data. In this case, I'm just going to add like some basic names here. Like let's just put Craig, maybe Bill. We can put Paul, Sally. You get the point. This is just for the sake of the video, whatever, right? So we have some basic data. Now the first thing we're going to look at is the formatting of this, like the green little box, and then color to separate it from the rest of the sheet. So the way we're going to do that is through conditional formatting, and then we're going to go to manage rules, and we're going to start making rules. So the first rule I want to make is, well, if there's data there at all, I want it to just be a base background color separated from the sheet. And that's how I like to do it. It's however y'all want to do it. So the way we do that is format cells that contain, and then we're just going to say it's not equal to nothing. And for the format, I'll just do maybe this nice gray color here. Okay. And then under here where it says applies to, we're going to just bring this down a ways. I'll do 100 for this video, but I would suggest making this a large number, depending on how much data you think you're going to add into here. I would go down quite a ways, but for this video, I'm just going to do 100 and apply that. So now you can see that the color is separated from the rest of the sheet. There's data in there, because we're basically checking anything but blank here. Another thing that I like to add to this, if we go back to edit rule here and format, is I like to add a border. So if there's data in there, then add a border all the way around like so. And again, this is just how I like to do it because it looks so much better. And that is our first rule. Now the next thing we want to check, put in here, is the green entry box, the box to represent place to put new entries. So we're going to make a new rule. Now for this one, we're going to use a formula. And what we're going to do with the formula is indirect. So the indirect is going to take our address, if I could spell address, and it's going to take just that raw text. It'll give you just a basic address, and the indirect will turn that into something the program can understand and compare values to. So address consists of row as well as column, like so. Of course, we have a bracket to close address and a bracket to close indirect. So what we're checking for is anything but nothing, and we're going to check above. So we're going to check above row here. So if I can just select, I don't want to use my arrow keys, these are kind of finicky. So row -1, so that's going to look at right above the given cell. If there's something in it, then show green. And for that format, I'll just give it a nice green color. And if you want to use a border to go with the rest, just put a bowl shape like this, so everything but the top one. and I just like to use the simple flat line there. I click OK, OK, and then we're going to give it the same range reference as the last one. And now an important note here is it is very important which orders these go into, and this is the second one. So I'm going to select it and then use this arrow to bring it down, and that's because the first thing it's doing is it's setting the values here. And if I apply that, you can see we have our little green box because there's something above it. Now the last thing I like to do is go ahead and say, okay, well, cells that have nothing in it just be white. So I'm going to make a new rule, and I'm going to go to cells that contain and are equal to nothing. So we had anything but nothing, and here we have is nothing. And then you could just leave it or do white, however you do that. And then click OK, and then this will be the last rule. And the same range, of course. So all the rules need to be exactly in this order, and it's important that you have each and every one of them. So when we apply, you can see it applied the white there. And now when we add new entry here, it will bring it down automatically like that. And when we remove it, it goes back up. Now, I don't know why anyone would do this, but in whatever case, in the middle of the list you add a name, it'll at least salvage it and make it look okay. So it'll just be here, and you can add something under it, and it still keeps up here as well. So there you go. So the next due consideration here is handling duplicates. It's completely up to you if you even want to do this. I like to at least handle duplicates. It can definitely come in handy when you have a very large list and maybe you are adding something you weren't aware you added before, whatever your case may be. But to do this, we're going to go ahead and go to the Data tab. We're going to go to Data Validation, and we're going to go to Custom because we're going to use a formula here. And the formula we want to do is we want to count our whole range. So we're counting if there's two of the same thing. So what we do here is we just go ahead and select our same range. So it was B3 through 100, the same as everything else. And then this is going to be a fixed range, which means you're going to add the $sign before the letter and the number on each of these references. Okay, so that is our counting range. And then it needs to pertain directly to the cell it's in. So we're going to start with B3. Now this has to be relative to each cell. This will not be fixed. That way when you copy and paste, it will copy over. And all we're going to do is just say, that equals 1. So what I like to do then is just give a message to let them know. Stop will completely keep them from doing it. You can just say you're not allowed to put a duplicate. I like some usability here and just let them know. And then for that, I can just go ahead and call it maybe duplicate advisory maybe is the title, and then the message I'll just say the entry already exists like that, and then that just lets the user know that somewhere in the list already exists, but it's not going to stop them from doing it. And then later on for handling this, depending on how we do the validation that we're going to do later, we want to also let them know that the duplicates won't be considered in the list. You can always come back and edit this, but just preemptively, I'm going to go ahead and put this in here for this video. And it's going to say duplicate entry. I can't spell today. Entries will not be listed, just like that. So I just let them know it already exists, and they can say yes and put it in there, but it won't be listed in what we're about to get into later with data validation. So I'm going to click OK. And to apply this to the whole range, we're going to have to select the cell that we just put it into here. And we're going to copy this. We're going to, starting with the cell directly underneath it, we're going to select all the way down to our whole range, which was to 100. So right here. And we're going to right click. We're going to go to paste special and validation. Now you can see if I select any of these and then go to validation, this range here was relative. It's very important you don't keep that fixed. but this one was fixed. So now if I enter a duplicate in, let's say Joe, it'll let you know the duplicate or the entry already exists. Duplicate entries will not be listed. But you have the option to still continue if you want. And that's just how I like to do it. You can completely stop them from doing it by just putting stop or however you do that. But that's just how I like to do it. And before we move on to the background formulas, the other noticeable thing you can do here is select your range in 100. I don't know why I went that far. If I could get to 100 here. Okay, and then you can go to insert table. It does have a header for that same range. Okay, and that will consider the header, and you can format it however you like. I just do this since we already use conditional formatting. You can just name your table whatever you name it, and this may be nice in case you want to filter certain things. I just wanted to note that it is possible to make this a table as well, or not make it a table. It's completely up to you. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to leave it a normal range. So the next thing we're going to get into is the data validation. Let's say you have, I'll just make up some mock data here. You have name, and then let's say you just have a name database like this for all your employees, just completely hypothetical here. Maybe just how many hours they work. Let's just keep it simple, right? So here's where you want the dynamic data validations that you can select based off this list. And then you would just put however many hours they worked here. This is just an example. So to do that, we're going to need to add a background data. Now you can put this formula in a background sheet or in a hidden cell, wherever. It's just good not to see it. But the validation list that we're going to use is going to refer to a refine list. So we have our validation list here. And then of course we can just give that the same formatting, doesn't matter, we're going to hide it. And this is where we're going to write a formula that takes this and makes it dynamic for our data validation over here. So the first thing to do with this formula is check for errors. So we're going to say if error, and then if there's an error, that means that there's no entry. So if there's no entry in here, it's going to give you an error. So instead of that, we just want to say no entry, like so, on our list. It's much cleaner and a lot better that way. So that's the first thing we're going to add. Now, there's two formulas here, and one of them kind of pertains to the duplicates. So the required formula, at least I would say it's required, is filter. And the reason we use filter is because we don't want to see in our data validation list over here all the different blanks. It'll just show a huge list of blanks, and we don't want that. So what we're going to do for the filter is we're going to select our same range here, and we're going to look at that array, and we're going to include anything that isn't blank. That's what we're including in that range. And of course, I'm going to go ahead and F4 these to make them fixed, right? And it spills. Now the spill is actually necessary for the data validation over here. Very important that this list spills. So you can see right now, if we go ahead and add a duplicate in here and I say yes, it considers that duplicate in this formula, right? Now notice how in our message we say duplicate entries will not be listed. I put that in there preemptively because we want to not list that here. So if that's what you want to do and not list the duplicates, then go ahead and do this step. Otherwise, just ignore it. But all we do for this, actually probably before filter, is we are just going to simply use the unique function here, and that's it. We're just going to pull the unique data out of what our filter returns. So we'll just put that inside our unique right here. Okay, and now you can see it doesn't consider that duplicate, right? And now what we said in our message is true. Duplicates won't be considered. Okay, so that is our data validation list that we are going to use. The next thing to do here is hide this. You can show it if you want, but I like to hide it or put it on a background sheet because no one wants to see that. One quick thing too about this list that's really cool. If you really want to, you could even add stuff to it. So let's say you wanted a colon here like this. So you can add things to this list that weren't originally in this list. So that way, for our example over here, for their name and how many hours they worked, it'll show like a little colon there, which makes it a little bit more professional, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hide this. And we're going to go ahead and look at how you do the data validations for all the lists over here. So under data and validation, we're going to go to list this time, but we're still going to use a formula. And the first formula we want to use is offset, so equals offset, right? And obviously these are uppercase. So the first thing we look at is the reference, and the reference we are offsetting from is going to be C2 because our validations here are referring to a refined list that is hidden. So we are going to look at C2, and it's going to be a fixed reference. And we're going to look at, or rather start at one cell down from that, which will be 3. And then we're going to go ahead and put the 0 as well. So this is the row, this is the column. We're going 0 columns. Right, and now we're going to use a formula here. This refers to the height. So we're going to use the count A. And all count A does is it looks at cells that aren't empty. So, or the number of cells that aren't empty. Counts all the cells but excludes the empty ones, right? So this is just going to be the same range. We're going to do C3 through C100. Right, we're going to go C3 through C100. Just the same range as we've been using, except it's that. We're going to go ahead and close that. So the height is going to be based off of how many cells there are in there. And the width, we'll just say 1. And then that is it. Now for the error alert, this I like to use stop. And then whatever you want to title it, we could just say, I'll just say error. It's whatever y'all want. And then we'll just let the user know you must use the drop down list to the right of the cell. You could even let them know that the list reflects the list to the left, or whatever your list is called. The list reflects, and I'll just put it in quotations, we'll just say expanding list. I just like to let my users know as much as possible, right? So we're just gonna stop them. They can't put what they want in there. They have to use that expandable list. Again, that's just what I like to do, but that is everything you need. Okay, and now you can see we have the list in here, and it also has our nice added amenity. So we're not having to add it into here and clutter it up. We just have to worry about their name and not this colon. And you can see it is in here, and we can just backspace to get rid of it. And now when we add a new person in here, I already put Kate, you can see it adds it at the bottom here. Okay, and then to apply this to your range, it's the same concept as before. You copy it, the one directly underneath it. Let's say we just want it to go to, we'll just say 15. So you select that, right click, paste special, validation, okay. And now you can see it's in here, and you can just format this however you want. I would suggest in this scenario you do this, and then here you would have these facing here. So we could just say Bob worked 1 hour, I guess, you know, however you do this. But now you can see to however many cells, wherever on the sheet we want, we have our data validation list. Now just a finalization and a recap here. First of all, let me just show you an example of this. We have you must use the drop-down list to the right of the cell. This list reflects this. Cool, we can cancel it, won't let us do it. And we can do things such as name our sheet, whatever we want, and then of course save our workbook. I'll just say expanding list. you get the idea. This is all pretty standard stuff. Just throw it on your desktop, whatever you want to do, right? Now some final recap here that I've prepared preemptively here is we have these annoying little data validation errors here, right? When you do put a duplicate in there, that is possible. And then there are some ways to get rid of this, like you can go to File, you can go to Options, Formulas. So here, Options, you can go to Formulas, and you can tweak that here. But that is specific to all of Excel. Do note that it will apply to your overall program to other sheets as well. Or if you lock the sheet, which I suggest, it will not show that anymore. And another thing I would also recommend is selecting the list you made and going to Format Cells, Protection, unlocking that, and then locking all the other cells you don't want users to interact with. And there you go. Now, here I have an example of the duplicate advisory here. So for that, you just use this formula. Conditional formatting is exactly the same. And then for data validation on this one, we still have the same alert. And then on this one, with the duplicate ignored, we just use any value. We don't put that validation in there, and then we don't use the unique function. That's the only differences. So no validation under your actual list, and then no unique function in here if you want to ignore duplicates. But if you do want to handle duplicates, you can put the unique here, and then put the message and data validation in here as I showed. So that wraps up this video. I hope this helped you in some way, and if you have any questions or comments, please let me know down below. And until next time, thank you so much for watching.